I'm 25 years old. Been dating my boyfriend for about 6 months. Things are going really well and we are getting more serious. He treats me well and we have good chemistry together overall. Feel like this could be a real relationship, not just casual. One night we are lying in bed after being intimate together. Start thinking about his past and who he has been with. Feel curious about how many people he has slept with before. Decide to just ask him directly about it right now. Ask him what his body count is casually like. No big. He looks at me surprised and asks why I'm asking. Tell him I am just curious and want to know about past. Say it is important for me to understand who I am with. He hesitates and says he does not really keep count of. Tell him everyone knows their approximate number, at least roughly here. He thinks for a minute, then says probably around 12 or so. Feel my stomach drop hearing that number from him. Now ask him 12 different people he has slept with, total, and he says yeah, over the years since he was 18. So do the math in my head, and that is more than one. Tell him that seems like a lot of people, honestly, too. He looks defensive and asks what I mean by a lot. Say 12 is just more than I expected from him, clearly. He asks what I expected, and I say, I do not know. Tell him I just thought it would be lower than that. He asks if it bothers me that he has been with. Tell him I do not know. I am just processing it right. Ask him if he was in relationships with all of them. He says no. Some were relationships, and some were casual hookups. Feel even worse hearing that some were just casual sex. Nothing. Ask him how many were just hookups versus actual relationships. Here he says maybe 5 were relationships, and rest were just casual over. Tell him that is a lot of casual sex with random people. He starts getting annoyed and says they were not all random. Says some were friends or people he knew from social circles. Tell him that is still casual sex, which says something about. He asks what it says about him, then if I know. Tell him it says he does not value intimacy or emotional. He looks hurt and says that is not fair at all. Says he was single and young and just living his life. Tell him I am not judging, just stating what it means. He says, it feels like I am definitely judging him, right? Tell him I am allowed to have feelings about his past. Say I need to know these things to feel safe with. He asks how his past affects my safety at all. Now tell him sexual history tells you about someone's values and character. Say someone who sleeps around casually does not value meaningful connections. He gets upset and says that is not true about him. Tells me he values our connection and his past does not. We go back and forth about it for a while here. I keep pressing him for more details about the hookup specifically. Ask him if he knew all their names at least, or he says yes. He knew their names. They were not strangers. Ask him if he is still friends with any of them. He says he is still friendly with a few of them. Feel jealous and uncomfortable knowing he still talks to women. Tell him that it's weird and he should not be friends. He says they are just friends now and it was years. Tell him it is still inappropriate to be friends with people slept. He gets frustrated and says I am being unreasonable about this. Tell him I am just expressing how I feel about situation. We eventually drop the conversation and go to sleep upset clearly, but I cannot stop thinking about his body count all night. 12 people seems like so many to me for someone his age. Feel like it says something about his ability to commit long. Next few days, I am distant and quiet with him noticeably. He asks what is wrong, and I say, still thinking about. Tell him I am having trouble getting past the number of. He sighs and says he cannot change his past. So what? Tell him I know, but I need time to process this. He says okay, and gives me space like I asked for, but I can tell he is getting frustrated with my mood. Start bringing it up again few days later during dinner out. Ask him if he regrets sleeping with that many people before. He says no. He does not regret his past experiences at Tell him that is concerning that he has no regrets about. He asks why he should regret being with people when single. Tell him because casual sex is empty and meaningless without love. Say it shows lack of self-control and respect for intimacy. He puts his fork down and says, this is getting ridiculous. Tells me he was single and allowed to do what wanted. Tell him I'm allowed to feel how I feel about. He agrees, but says I need to either accept it or ask him. Or what exactly is he saying to me, right? He says, Or maybe we are not compatible if this bothers. Feel panic that he is suggesting breaking up over this topic. Tell him I'm not saying we should break up. Just to cuts me a fan asks, what am I processing? Then say I am trying to understand who he is based on. He takes a deep breath and asks me a question. Asks me what my body count is. Then if we sharing, feel my face get thought and heart start tracing fast. There tell him that is different and not the same thing. At the looks confused and then says, show is it different exactly now tell him. Because I asked him first and he answered me, he says, okay. So now, I'm asking you the name, feel defensive and say I do not want to answer that. He asks why not if I wanted to know his number. Tell him because my reasons for asking were about safety and say his reasons for asking are probably to judge me for. He looks frustrated and says that is exactly what I did. Tell him no. I was just trying to understand his past. He says fine. Then help me understand your past the same. Feel trapped and do not know what to say to him. My number is higher than his, and I do not want finally mumble that my number is around 18 or so total. He looks surprised and says, oh, okay, that is more than feel immediately defensive and say so. What if it is more? Tell him it is different for women than it is men. He asks, how is it different? The situation is the same. Tell him women are allowed to explore their sexuality without judgment. Say men sleeping around is different than women doing it clearly. He says that is a complete double standard I'm applying. Tell him no. It is not women reclaiming their sexuality from. He interrupts and says, this is insane logic I am using. Asks me how I can judge him for 12 when mine. Tell him to stop judging me for my number right now. He says he is not judging, just asking the same questions. Reminds me I spent days being upset about his 12 people. Now I am mad that he even asked about mine. Tell him yes, because his question comes from different place. Then he asks, what different place does it come from? Then exactly tell him his comes from wanting to shame me for say mine came from wanting to know if he values intimacy. He says that makes absolutely no sense at all to him. Start crying and tell him he is making me feel bad. Say I cannot believe he is judging me for my past. He looks exhausted and 7 and 21 says he's not judging and me. Says he's just pointing out I did exact same thing. Tell him it is not the same thing when I did. He asked me to explain how it is different. One time cannot come up with good explanations. So I just cry harder. Tell him he does not understand what it is like, for he says what is like for women exactly right now. Tell him to be judged for your sexuality and past choices. He says I literally just did that to him for days. Say that was different. I was processing information for my safety. He asks how many times I'm going to say different. Tell him until he understands that my situation is not same. He gets up from table and says he needs some air. Walks outside, and I sit there crying at the restaurant alone. When he comes back, he is calm and asks if we tell him if we what, and he says if we are okay. Say I do not know. I feel attacked by him asking. He says he asked one question after I asked him same. Tell him, but I had valid reasons for asking him about it. He says, what were your valid reasons? Then explain to me, say I needed to know for my emotional safety with him. He says, okay, so I needed to know for same reason. Tell him no, because women are more vulnerable in relationships. Then say we need to know men's pasts to protect ourselves from. He asks protect from what exactly, if I can explain clearly, cannot articulate it. So I just say he would not understand. We sit in silence for the rest of dinner, neither eating much. He pays the bill and we drive home in complete silence. Can tell he is really upset with me about this whole, but I feel like he is being unfair asking about mine. When we get home, he tells me he needs to think. Says he does not understand my logic and it bothers him. Tell him he is supposed to support me, not question my. He says he does support me, but this feels like hypocrisy. Tell him it is not hypocrisy. It is different standards, for he says different standards based on gender is literally the definition. Start crying again and tell him he is being mean too. He says he is not being mean, just being honest here. Go to bedroom and cry while he stays in living room. Text my friend about what happened. And she says men never say exactly he is being so judgmental about my past. When she says his body count was probably higher anyway. So whatever, tell her no, his was actually lower than mine. But that she says, wait, what? How much lower than yours exactly here? Tell her he had 12, and I have 18. So, not. She says, oh, that is actually pretty different. Then honestly, girl, tell her it does not matter the number. It matters the Z. She asked the what, and I say the intention behind asking. Explain that I asked him to know if he values intimacy. Say he asked me just to throw my question back at. She says maybe he asked for the same reason you did. Tell her no, men do not need to know that for. She says this seems like a double standard you are applying. Cannot believe even my friend is siding with him on this. Few days pass and things are tense between us. Still here. He finally sits me down and says, we need to talk. Tells me he has been thinking about the body count conversation. Says he feels like I applied unfair standard to him versus tell him I did not apply unfair standard. He cuts me off and says, I judged him for having, then got upset when he asked me the same question back. Say it is different when women have higher body counts. Man. He asks me to explain one more time how it different. Tell him women exploring sexuality is empowerment. Men doing it is not. He says that is sexist against men, and I know it. Tell him you cannot be sexist against men. That is not. He looks at me like I am crazy and says tell him sexism is about power and men have the power. He says this is not about societal power. This is about say everything is about societal power and gender dynamics always here. He tells me he does not think we are compatible anymore. Feel panic rise up and ask him what he means exactly. He says if I cannot see the hypocrisy in what did, then we have fundamental disagreement about fairness and respect in relationship. Start crying and beg him not to break up over this. Tell him I am sorry and I see his point now. He says he does not think I do see his point. Says I am just saying what he wants to hear, right? Tell him no. I really do understand. Now I was wrong. He asks, what specifically was I wrong about? Then exactly here. Stumble over my words trying to explain but cannot really articulate. Realize I do not actually think I was wrong. Just trying. He can tell I am not being genuine about the apology. Tells me he needs some time apart to think about us. Asks if he can stay at his friend place for few. Feel devastated and beg him not to leave me over this. He says it is not just about body counted about. Says it is about me having different standards for him versus say, I cannot accept that kind of inequality in a relationship. Packs a bag while I cry and beg him to stay. He leaves and I am alone feeling confused about what happened. Text my friend and tell her he left me over this. She asks if I apologized and admitted the double standard there. Tell her I tried, but I do not think I was. She says then yeah, he probably is done with you. Honestly, girl, tell her that is not fair. I was just asking about. She says you asked then judged him, then got mad when asked. Say it is different for women, and she says whatever you say. Sit alone thinking about how this all went so wrong here. I just wanted to know about his past for my safety. Never thought he would turn it around and ask me back. Feel like he should have just answered and not made big. Realize I probably will not get him back unless I admit. But I still do not think I was wrong about this. Women should be allowed to ask men without being asked back. Our pasts mean different things because of gender dynamics and power. Month later, and he still has not come back home yet. Tells me he thinks we should officially break up for good. Says he cannot be with someone who holds him to different. Feel devastated, but also angry that he is being so rigid. Tell him he is throwing away our relationship over one conversation. He says it was not one conversation. It was several days. Says it showed him something about how I view fairness, and say I view fairness through lens of gender and power always. He says that is the problem. He views fairness as equal. Tell him equal is not the same as equitable for genders. He says this is exactly why we cannot work out together. We officially break up, and I am heartbroken over losing him. Think about how all I did was ask about his past. Never expected him to turn it around and ask me same. Feel like I was treated unfairly for having boundaries and standards, but deep down wonder if maybe I was being hypocritical. Like sometimes asking questions means being ready for same questions back at. Sometimes judging someone's past means accepting judgment of your own past too. Sometimes different standards based on gender is just hypocrisy disguised as. And sometimes you cry when he asks yours back after judging his. If this confession kept you hooked, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We share powerful true stories every day that explore the complex realities of life.